Okay, welcome. Just before I hand you over to Malcolm, you will have seen in the newsletter that Malcolm and I have decided that next week's lesson, the 10th, will be the last lesson as such. And the reason for that is, looking at the book and what we've covered, we always said we would cover the basics and the foundation to get you into Affinity, and so you have got some skills to then move on. If we carried on, we've had a look in the book, and it starts to get more advanced very quickly, and we didn't really want to, well, I won't speak for Malcolm, but for speaking for myself, go beyond my level of what I know and what I can teach. So hence why next week's will be the last. But I'm going to hand over to Malcolm, because Malcolm and I have had a chat, and he's got a suggestion. So right, over to you, Malcolm.
Thank you very much, and welcome back everyone for our third lesson. I'm pleased to see so many of you have joined us on this bank holiday Monday. I've had a few people phone me and say they're not able to make it today because they've got other commitments, but I have told them we're recording it and they look forward to actually seeing it again on YouTube. Okay, what Paul has mentioned, the fact that we are only covering the basics, and if you've been doing your homework that Paul has been setting you, you should be even further ahead than we are. There is a tremendous amount of power in this program, as there is with a lot of the other programs of similar type, but this is the one that we just felt during the lockdown we would like to get together and learn. Now, Paul and I have been doing this on a Tuesday afternoon, and we will probably carry on working through the book on a Tuesday afternoon. And if people want to join us, then maybe we will look at that as well. But it may be one of those situations where one of us can't make it on a Tuesday, so we just cancel it at the last moment. But that is what we have planned at the moment, because we will still continue Tuesday afternoons at 2 o'clock, just ploughing our way through the book and going back over some of the things that we felt that we would like to revisit. Okay, I'm going to share my screen and show you where we're going today. And opening up Affinity, and today I'm going to be talking a little bit more about some of the keystrokes that we can use, because once you start to use the program, rather than always with your mouse or your tablet looking at all the different options, there are lots there that you don't need to even be using the mouse. You can just do things with your keyboard. I'm going to open my very first, and as you see, this is where I keep all my files, and I've got it all listed, so it's nice and easy to work out. And how I've got rid of all the other paraphernalia around, I've just clicked on the tab key and it's cleared all the other distraction that I've got on the screen at the moment. Okay, this is where we're going to go, and this is the Affinity basic instructions, and they are just the basic.
There's some echo on the voice, you know, there's some sort of echo.
I can hear an echo as
yeah.
well. If I and I found that when we first started. Is it still echoing now?
Yeah.
I can't.
I can't hear it.
No, I can't hear it now.
Okay, I've
Is it somebody else that's not on mute? I'm not.
Oh, I'm not on mute. Oh,
Yeah, but
sorry.
I wonder whether somebody's got a husband or wife chatting in the background.
Oh
or
no,
something.
there's nothing here.
is it echoing now?
No.
No, well, I've changed my connection, so it could have been me. I've got lots of different mics and cameras that can pick up other sounds. Okay, we're going to be today working with this very, very powerful selection tool. There are a number of them in Affinity, and we'll be going over that. And the simplicity of actually, once you've made a selection, inverting that selection, and you'll see that. We're going to go to auto contrast, and somebody mentioned in one of the lectures about how do you find about the automatic contrast, which is in Affinity as it is in other programs, filters and sharpening, and the flood selection tool, which is a regular selection tool. I personally don't use it a great deal because I find the regular selection brush very, very good. Adjusting layers, selection and refining, which is absolutely amazing in Affinity. And then sizing an image for club competitions, which Paul will take you over with that. I'm going to close this down and go to our first screen. I'm going to close that one first, too much working in the background. And I'm closing that with Control and W, or Command and W in Mac. I don't want to save that. I'm going to leave that. This is, if this is a typical sort of image that you've taken while you were out with your camera, and a completely bald sky and an uninteresting building that you thought at the time looked really good, and we want to change that building so it looks a little bit more interesting. As you move on, you'll probably find that you can probably replace that sky as well. But to actually select the building, I always think that it's easier to select the more simple color in the image. And the simpler image is the sky itself. We'll select the sky, then we will invert it. So it will then be, the building will be selected. Now, the selection brush is down here on the tools panel. So that's the selection brush. And you could get to that by just clicking on the W on your screen. Going to click on that. And I'm going to start, you need to get yourself a brush of a reasonable size. And you can do that by enlarging or making smaller with your brackets key. Now I'm using the brackets key, the right-hand bracket key makes it bigger, left-hand bracket key makes it smaller. Left mouse, start to sweep over and select the sky. And I've now selected all the sky, and it's made a reasonable job around the top of the building. If we'd selected the building, it probably would have made a much more difficult job. Now I really wanted the building selected. Now my marching ants are going all the way around the top and around the top of the building. So it's the sky that's selected. I'm going to go to the invert selection, which is along here. And there it is there. I'm going to go just left click once, and now the building selected. Very, very simple way. So it's that selection button there. If I was to click the deselect, everything's deselected, but I want to select it back again, which is Control and Z, and it's undone what I've done. So we've now got the actual building selected, and I'm going to go to the the filters menu. First of all, we're going to do auto control, which is auto levels, auto control, auto contrast, auto colors, auto black and white. But I just want the auto contrast, which is this one. And you'll see Affinity has automatically adjusted the colors on the building. What I'm now going to do is go to the menu and go to the filters. Going to go to sharpen and go to clarity. And in clarity, I got you. If you move the clarity left or right, you'll see the clarity move up. And we're going, in the book, it actually says about number 20, about a clarity of about 20. It gives you a clarity of about 20. And we're actually looking at page 106 for this. So if you're working from the book, 106 or 108 if you got a different version. If you just go
But
apply.
actually 106 in my book as well, strangely.
Oh, is it? Right. Good. If you go apply, that has actually made a difference to the building. And you can see the difference it's actually made. So if I was to go back to history, and we've got 4 tabs open: layers, colors, brushes, history. And if I go back on the history, you'll see the difference we've actually made. Any questions on that?
Could you just point out apply, please?
I certainly will. Go back to the layers. And I'm going to go to filter, sharpen, clarity. And if you see, there are lots of other functions within that you can go to, because you can have a split screen to show you the before and after. And you've got different ways of actually doing that. But this program is so powerful and so many things to do. If you don't think you've given that enough clarity, you can make it go a bit bigger. Or even, oh, I've lost my apply. Filter,
No, I saw it was there.
sharp,
Yeah, I saw where it was.
filter, sharpen, clarity. And it's only 3% at the moment. So you can take it right up, and that will make a big difference. Don't overcook it, because it will be too much. But then if you do apply, that's where you've gone. You can deselect that, you can export that or save it as you want. But if you're going to export it, then you will need to decide on what sort of file you're going to save it as. I'm not going to export that. I'm going to close that. But please ask if you need anything else to go about that. Okay, we're going to continue with the book, because the next book, and I found this quite confusing, because this is create a flood selection. This is at page 108. I'm going to open my next. And this didn't seem always to work correctly. And what we're going to do, over on the tools panel down the left-hand side, that is the selection brush, but below it is a flood selection brush. And you can flood, if I click on that and look at the sky and think, well, that fills about 25%. And if I put a tolerance of 25% in there, click on the clouds, and it will actually fill. It's now taking it to 23. Going to take that, start again with that. So I find this quite a confusing tool to use. Okay, it's taken far too much. This, I never really found this worked very well. And I'm not so sure the instructions are particularly good in this book about this flood selection. It tells you to start at 0 and drag from left to right, and it should fill the sky, but always it doesn't do as good a job as the selection tool. If you've overdone that, if you press the Alt key, and work over and take away what you don't want. It will take them away. But I don't like this. I don't like the flood selection tool. It seems to be a big problem. And I don't mind showing that I do have problems with some of the tools. This is one I don't particularly like. It's actually done a reasonable job this time, but it's still not good. But it's given that there is a tolerance of 25%. I'm not so sure the Marquee tool or the Marching Ants is as good as with the selection tool. Okay, but it's done. It's actually got to where we want to. I'm going to go to the layers menu, and I'm going to go to the new adjustment layer and go to levels. In the book, it's actually suggesting that we give the whites, you can move, you give the black about 30%, and you can actually move it in. You can see the sky going that bit darker, and then bring in the whites to about 90%. You don't need to go apply with this, but you can see it's actually set in the layers panel a new layer. If you click that on and off, you can see the difference has actually brightened up the sky. Interesting that is done in that way, but that level, you can actually double click on that and it'll bring back your layer, and you can readjust it as you wish. Any questions on that? But I say I have had a struggle with the flood selection tool. You really do have to get it right.
Yeah, I think we both have Malcolm, but it's worth the students sort of actually knowing it's there and knowing it has problems as well as its advantages. It may well work in a different type of environment, image, sort of with the colours and different colours, etc.
One question, Malcolm. What's on the bottom of that screen you had just now? Black and white. Was it black and white or exposure? You've got an input and an output, or no? You've got a black on level. What's the output black level? The one below it, that one, and the output white level. Any idea?
Can I answer that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. My belief is that's if you're printing.
All right.
It's to do with printing outputs.
Okay.
More than that, I don't know. It may be that printers actually ask for a certain level of black output and white output, and you just plug those in to what they say.
Okay.
But certainly I've never used them to actually adjust, you know, the what I'm seeing on the screen.
Okay, thank you.
I'd say if you've asked a complex question in a way there, David. It sounds simple, but it's complex. But when I printing out of Photoshop, there was always a way of splitting the levels into different levels for your black output and your white input. And there was a way of splitting them for where different between projection and printing. And I think what they've done there in Affinity, they've actually given you the choice rather than the complex way of splitting the levels.
Right.
But okay, I'm going to deselect that with the Control or Command D, and that's deselected that because I don't really want that. I could even get rid of that layer if I go down to the bottom of my layers and hit the trash bin. Make sure you've got the levels highlighted. Just click that and you've got rid of that. So there's the sky exactly as we started. Control W, I'm going to close that and get rid of that. I don't want to save it. I'm going to leave it as it was. This is the power of Affinity, and this is one of the parts that I really do enjoy a lot. This is what I did a lot in photography with portraits. I would be taking a picture of a person against a plain background, and you then wanted to actually move your model to a different background, to a much more interesting background. This is where we start, and this is called refine, and we'll show you the refine. This is very, very powerful. We want to select the girl because we want to take her off of that plain grey background. And the first thing we're going to do is the same as we've done before with the other selections. Rather than try and select her and her hair, the background is an easier, a simple color to select. So over to the selection tool, and that could be W on your keyboard. Click on that, get yourself a brush of about the right size, and probably that is. And I'm going to start to drag over that girl or the background. And I've missed some down the bottom because it couldn't get past her hair. So don't forget to put that in as well. Now that doesn't look like a very good selection with the marching ants. And what we now need to do, and is in Photoshop always used to have to refine this, but before we do that, we want to make sure we've got the girl selected and not the background. So back to your inverse, and you see the girl is now selected. That's where we now start, the fun will now start to begin, because if you go along to your top toolbar, you've got refine, and this box will open. And as you see in the preview across here, we've got overlay. You've got a tremendous amount of different types of overlay, but in this one, we're going to be using the red one. You can have a black, you can have a white, or you can have a black and white, which looks rather strange, but you can see how poorly the actual cutout is done on the black and white. Or you can have transparency, but keep that in mind because that's probably where we're going to be going eventually. But go back to your overlay. I'm going to leave the borders at about 10%, but you now need a brush that, if you can see around her hair, I've put a brush that is far too small. Take that pixel, the amount of pixels up to somewhere around about 300. And you can do that by typing in and enter. Now, if you look, I've got a brush that overlaps her hair and the background. And I'm going to start, in actual fact, it looks as though it hasn't done a good job with, I'm going to cancel that because it hasn't done a good job with selecting the girl. I'm going to select her as well. That's better. I don't mind making mistakes, do that all the time. Right, now go back to refine. When I looked at that before, her shoulder was all in red, so that wasn't quite right. Okay, about 300 pixels. We must be on overlay. And this little box here that says matte edges, you need that ticked as well. I'm going to start running a little tiny bit at a time. And according to how powerful your computer is, if you've got a really powerful computer, you can do a lot more. If it isn't, and your computer is working very, very hard to define what is the background and what is the hair. So don't do too much at a time. Otherwise, you might as well go all the way around her and go for a cup of coffee. Okay, we'll continue around the girl's hair. And the computer is now selecting the difference between her hair and the background. We had a bit of hair over here that you need to, and down on her right arm. I think I've got all of it in. And I now need to decide what I'm going to do with this, but I'm going to actually make a mask of the girl. Don't forget the girl is selected, not the background, because we selected the background to start with, but the girl is now selected because we did an inverse. And now you need to decide what to do with, we're going to make a mask of this. At the bottom here, you've got selection, output, and I'm going to have a new layer with a mask. There we've got apply at the bottom. You can cancel if you want to start again, or go apply. And you can see here it is made a new layer. And if you see within the layer, there is a mask. If you click on the layer, you actually see what we're calling a child layer, which is part of the actual that layer. So there is the layer. And just to show you how good a job this has made of cutting out this young girl, if I now decide I want to copy her and move her to a different background, I'm going to go to Control or Alt or Command in. Now let me do it this way. I'm going to go to Edit. I'm going to go to Copy, and I'm now going to open another image. Let me open this one. And if I now copy her.
Paste, I think you mean.
Yeah, even paste her. Now, I've pasted her into that background. You wouldn't normally do this onto that sort of background, but it's just that I had that background that was also portrait fashion as well. If I now go to this important little tool over here, it's a V on your keyboard or click on the move. If you can see, I've got these little handles have opened. If you were to go to one of the corner anchors, that won't alter the ratio of where you started. If you were working on a magazine and you wanted to make her look slimmer, you probably could do. If you wanted to make her look shorter and squatter, you could do. Or, let's take her back because that's unfair to this young lady. But you want a smaller, you want a smaller on the front of your magazine down in the corner, but it's made, your corner handles will automatically keep her the same proportions, the same ratio. Any questions on that?
No.
I've got a feeling, and if you use one of the middle handles, that's it, and you hold the Alt key, it keeps the ratio. Just
the one as well. Yeah, it does on the corner. It does on the corner handles.
Oh right. So I think it's the Alt key, and you can still keep the ratio.
Yeah. And if you see when you click on that, and it will actually give you the measurements as well, the pixel measurement. And also there is another little facility that if you can get it right, you can actually swing it round as well. Incredibly powerful tool. Click off your layer and it's gone. But these handles, you can actually get rid of those and just click the H on the keyboard and they've gone. Go back to your move tool and they're back again. Going to close that because I don't need it. Control W or Command on a Mac W. I don't want to save that, but this is where we started with this image. I didn't want to do too much with this because it's quite complex, but it is so powerful. Where Heather and I, many months ago, before the lockdown, we used to meet once a month to have a digital afternoon, and we got together as a whole group and go through different techniques. And one of the techniques she passed on to a lot of the members of the club. I'm going to get rid of that layer. And this was how to brighten up parts of an image. And in Photoshop, there is one stage where you've got to put a 50% grey over your image and then go to overlay. In Affinity, there's one less step to go through. And I hope you don't mind me showing this, Heather, but it's slightly different in Affinity, but does exactly the same job.
Well, please go ahead and show us then, because I want to know where it is.
Yeah, it is like magic again. It really is. So you've opened this image, and you want to make her eyes look a little bit brighter, which is not unusual. But first of all, what I will do is I will enlarge that. So I'm going to go Control or Command in Mac and hit and hit 2, and I've now enlarged that up to 200%, and much easier to work on that eye. Now that brush is far too big. I'm going to take that down, but okay, that's not important. What you now need to do, and this is the beauty of it, Heather. This is the step that you don't need, that you miss out the 50% grey, is add a pixel layer. And we're in the layers, and now you will go to overlay, and you need to go. We're going to pick a brush, which is down here on your tools bar, or it's B. I've now selected a brush, and as you might see it at the moment where I've got the brush, make it bigger. You can see everything is black under the brush. So I need first of all to select the right brush, and I don't know why on my computer, whenever I click brushes, acrylics come up, but I don't want acrylic. I just want basic. I want a nice soft round brush, which I find down here. These are your regular brushes. These are your soft brushes. I want a regular soft brush, and I'm still coming up with black. I don't want black. I want to brighten them. Go to color, and there you can see black and white. I need to, this is the color that's in operation. I need to change it to the white. I'm now in white, but it's still too powerful. I'm going to take that down in the opacity to a much lower opacity. Make sure I've got the white selected and the brush selected. I can now start to brighten her eye. This is exactly the same way that Heather was showing with Photoshop, how you were making things darker or brighter. So I could have made that darker in, and keep your brush, make sure you make your brush the right size. And I will only do this very roughly for demonstration. I would be more accurate with this if I was doing this for real. What I will do, I'm going to make another pixel layer. This time I'm going to go to color and change it to black. Go back to,
do remember the overlay.
and yeah, overlay, and we don't want too powerful, so take the opacity down. Make sure brush is selected. Going to run round the dark rim of her eye, and where I overlapped at the bottom there with a bit of white, fill that in. This always makes someone's eyes look even brighter. If I go back to the overlay, you can make that look really silly and really bright. I can go back to the original one I worked on, which was this one, and make the whites even whiter with the opacity. I'm going to take that back to the original size, which is Control or Command on Mac and hit the 0. It's gone back to the normal size. I'm going to put these two pixel layers together. And I do that by holding down the, click on one pixel layer, hold down the shift, click on the next pixel layer, come down here, and I'm going to make that just one group. The reason I've done that is I'm going to turn that off. Now, if anyone thinks she's winking at you, maybe you're right. But that is actually brightening up the eye. And that was how it was done in Photoshop as well, wasn't it, Heather? But you've missed that one step of the 50% grey. And it's just with that pixel layer.
I also missed where you clicked to group the, because I was writing, and I missed where you clicked to group it together.
Okay. If I, there, you need
go back in history, Malcolm.
Nice one, yes. Go back to history. And if you can see set visible group, I'll go back to that step. And if we go back to the layers, it's gone. I'm gonna deselect the layers so I can show you what I've done. Select.
Keep going down. That's it. Yeah.
Deselect layers. Okay, now there's nothing selected at the moment. Left click on one of them, hold down your shift key, left click on the next one. Those are two now grouped together. And at the bottom here, you've got all these different little tools. Third from the right is group. You've now made those one little group all together. And with that, I was actually able to turn the group on and off. You can, and these now are all, if I click on the one that we did the whites with, I can make them whiter by punching up the opacity, make the blacks. So they're still separate layers, but they now are in that group. Take her back to normal size, Control 0, and I can turn the whole group on and off. We have said that this is a we did say this is a powerful program, and we've only just started to touch the surface of this. I'm going to close this. Control or Command Mac W. And I don't want to save it with all the silly nonsense I've done to that. We've got 20 minutes, Paul.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go to the next section in the book, which I had a lot of trouble with, which is page 114. If I open this, and I'll tell you what.
116 in mine.
Thank you, Paul. If I open this one, when you open this in if you've downloaded this, as you can from the internet, because Affinity give you all the downloads for this, when you download it, this rock where my cursor is, this rock here, there's this rock here, there's actually another rock in between on a layer mask, and I couldn't work out why and how they did that, and I wasn't happy because until I understand what is going on, something pre-made I wasn't happy with. So what I thought I'd try to do is do a similar exercise for myself, and some amazing things happened. I've got rid of all my tools and everything with the tab key. I'm going to bring them back again. And this is what I did. I'm going to take, if you can see where my cursor is, I'm going to take this rock. I'm going to make another rock and put it somewhere else in the picture. In fact, I'll put it over here in this space. Not enough rocks in this picture, are there? So first of all, I'm going to go to the marquee tool, the rectangular marquee tool, and I'm going to draw a marquee around it. Now you might think I've got too much in that, including this other rock, but we won't worry about that to start with. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go to edit, go copy. I'm going to go edit, and I'm going to go paste. Now it doesn't look as though anything's happened, but it's because it's still in the same place. If I go to the move tool, you can see the handles that we had before. There, that is now another layer, and there is the actual stone that was over on the left-hand side. I've now moved it over here. Don't worry about all the rest of the background, but what I want to do is make that a different size. I can keep it the same ratio, or I can make it fatter, or I can make it taller, whatever I like, or I can twist it a little bit. But I'm going to make it a bit bigger.
Or you can turn it through 180 degrees.
Right.
Well, sorry, 360.
Yeah.
360. No, 180. Yeah.
You can turn it how you like, but this is absolutely magic. I never remember finding this in Photoshop. Take the right handle, left click on it, and start to pull. Pull it right the way through itself, and you've actually turned it round. Now, this is where I did get confused. I showed Paul this, and he had to remind me what I had to do. But first of all, you've got to get rid of your handles, which you can do by just clicking the H. You now need to get rid of the marching ants. That's Control or Command in Mac, and click D, or you could click up here, and that will deselect it. Now we're doing selections, so I'm going to go to my selection tool, get yourself a brush of the right size.
Can I just say for the students, always make sure that the layer is up on the layers palette, your panel. The layer is highlighted that you're working on. So
yeah,
thank you, Paul. They're both called background. This one, the copied one, is the top one. That's it. Oh, well done. Yeah.
In the book, it always advises you to rename stuff when you do things like this. Deselect that. If you hit mask, oh, I've done that wrong.
Yeah.
History, go back.
Yeah, leave the selection before the mask.
Yeah, leave the selection. Now we're going to make a mask. That background's gone. If I now deselect it, and of course it's in a silly place, isn't it? Go to your move tool. Now the handles are around the wrong thing at the moment. You need to click on the stone, on the rock. The handles are now around the rock and all the parts that we selected. You could carry on resizing it if you wanted. The best thing is we're going to move that into a place where it'll look a little bit more attractive. Get rid of the handles. Take it back to the size it was before. Now that rock there is now there. I mean, you could work on that and get rid of that little mark so it doesn't look the same. But this is the power and the magic of Affinity. If you untick that in the layers, it's gone. So it is only a layer sitting on that.
Malcolm?
Yes.
Just be aware, luckily this is a flat image. Just be aware if you do twist it, that the shadows, you'll need to lighten the shadow area and darken it on the opposite side because the sun will be coming from the wrong direction.
See, Heather, you're a photographer and a judge, and you will pick that up straight away. If you notice, I actually, when I selected this, I did select a little bit of the shadow as well. But this is nonsense, isn't it? Because the shadows are in the wrong place. And you don't want the judge to pick that up, because a good judge will pick it up straight away, which is what you have done. So this is just an exercise to show what you can do. Not that I would do that, but and when people look at it and say, oh, you've got that in the wrong place. No, I never do any manipulation. That was just taken in the camera. But you're right, the sun's in the wrong place, the shadow's the wrong way around. But I did, when I did the cutout, I did make sure I picked up a bit of the shadow as well, because I was aware of that.
Yeah, I think what I was meaning was more the shadow on the rock itself.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, if you just darken if you look at the rock next to it, it's sort of got quite a dark triangle underneath on the rock. You could just put a little bit of darkness into that, and nobody would know any different.
Yeah, I think if you were doing something like this, you would then spend a lot of time making good the mistakes that you've made, which is the shadow underneath in the wrong place, the shadow on the rock in the wrong place, and you would need to be working on that. But we're doing just selection at the moment, and the power it is. I think we're going to, it's now gone 1:45, and I think Paul is going to finish with resizing for competition. It can be a little bit complicated, and so like resizing for competitions, and this is for digital competitions. Do you want me to stop sharing with this, Paul, so you can take over the screen?
Please do, yeah. This is where we've got to hope that Zoom, with me running it, will actually work. Right, what can people see?
We can see your lady.
Brilliant, okay.
Let's just let everyone know that Paul and I share this lady.
Excuse me. There's a rumour to start.
Isn't Carmel mine?
She's gone out, thank goodness, Heather.
Yeah.
Right. Sizing for competitions. The competitions that we have at H2, the sizes are in pixels, are 1600 on the longest side for landscape format, and 1200 pixels for the longest side, which is obviously the vertical one, in portrait format. Somebody's just said something. Hello, Yvonne. Yeah?
I didn't say anything.
Oh, right. Sorry. I heard something. So the other measurement, for the want of a better word, and you can tell I am trying to be as accurate as possible with this, is DPI, dots per inch. Dots per inch are nothing to do with pixels. They are again, coming back actually to printing again, output. And what we suggest at H2 is that any image, whether it be for a digital competition or whether it be you're going to print it out either at home or with a commercial printers and have it as a print, which we may do, and hopefully in times to come we will get back to print competitions. But what we're suggesting is whatever, when you're resizing an image, we would suggest doing it at 300 dots per inch. And I'm just going to show you that. So the first thing you do with it is just check what size this image is. Now, I know it's quite a large image because obviously I've downloaded it from the internet. But under Document, you have got a Resize Document. Click on that, and it's only a little box, but it gives you lots of information. So it gives you the pixel size for the width. So that is the number of pixels going across there. Pixels are short for picture elements. And it's all those little elements going across there. There's 3,468 picture elements make up that area there, across there. Coming down is 5,212, which it would be because that side is longer, being a portrait format. And the DPI, as it happens, is 300. But what we're suggesting is you always make that 300, but you don't want to alter these. So to do that, you don't want it resampled. So you just unclick resample. And then if that was at 72, as sometimes it is, you just bring it back up to 300 and you click resize. You won't see anything happen to the image. We'll just double check we've got it right. So it's Document, Resize Document, little thing, and yes, there it is. The DPI is 300. So we've got it, and it's actually confirmed down here, description, pixels by 300 dots per inch. So we're right, we can cancel that. Now, that was sort of the tricky bit. The rest, I've got my fingers crossed, should be quite easy. To resize an image in Affinity Photoshop, as we know, you do not save images if you want to output them. You export them, ... So it's File, File, Export, ... and you get this panel come up. I won't go through it again. Malcolm went through it at length. You've got all sorts of formats up here you can save things as, but we always save as a JPEG for our competitions. And here you have the pixel size, which you can alter. This is a portrait format, so you want the longest size to be 1200. So go to the height, which is actually got blue around it, and just type in 1200. And then just push return. And if you watch, when I push return, you'll see the width alter. There we are. It's gone to 798 pixels. Now that is because this little padlock is locked. And I would suggest you always keep it locked when you're doing your images, altering your images for competitions, because it will make sure that your image stays at the correct format. And as long as the width is not greater than 1600, as long as your height is not going to be more than 1200 because you've put that in, you know you've sized your image correctly. I would always suggest with JPEGs you go to 100% quality, and you'll see at the bottom here, which is again a useful little bit of information, it will tell you the size that you have downsized your image to. Now, kilobytes are obviously information on computers. Bytes are what computers store information as. I know that this image, when I downloaded it, was 24 megabytes, 24 million pixels. It's now dropped down to 834,000 bytes. So it's considerably smaller, but you want it around about that size for competitions. Competitions, anything between 700 kilobytes up to 2 megabytes. You don't want, if it's any bigger than that, you're going to have a problem emailing them, and there's probably, it's an indication that something's gone wrong. So it's always worth having a look at that estimated size. Once you've done that, you export it, and you will get your computer's Explorer window come up, and you just save it wherever you save your competition entries. And that's down to you, the way you work your workflow. It's sort of as simple as that. Any questions?
Yeah, just one, Paul.
Yeah.
Why did you only make the height 1200 and not 1600?
Right.
Sure.
Because of that, let me do it again. So you go to File, Export, ... If I'd, it's a portrait format. So as you know, on our bit of software that we have on a Thursday evening, we are told that the height cannot be any more than 1200 pixels. So if I put 1600 in here, I'll do that, 1600. And just think, you know, perhaps I haven't appreciated that this is a portrait format. It's a landscape. I'm thinking it's a landscape format. If I now click return, because that padlock is locked, if you watch,
yeah,
the height goes up way, way beyond 1200.
Yeah, I realise that, but why don't you put the height on the other side where it's 2405? Make
Well,
that
that's
make
what
that
I did.
1600.
Yeah, that's what I did do.
No, you didn't.
Right.
Dave?
You put 1200 in.
Yeah, but Dave,
Yeah.
if you ignore the fact that this is a portrait image,
Yeah.
if you think of every image as being a landscape, the pixels, whatever pixels your image is, must fit within 1600 from left to right and 1200 up to down. Because this is a portrait image, it can only be, the longest side can only be 1200, because the projector cannot project beyond those parameters. So you can't have 1600 from top to bottom because it won't go through the projector.
Right. So let's suppose that it was a portrait of a young lady in a square format. So what would happen then if it was 1600? It'd be
Well,
1600 all round.
No,
Yeah.
no, it could be 1200 all round.
Yeah,
because
height
the longest,
the height can't be more than 1200.
Oh, right.
you can't go above 1200 on the height.
Okay.
And if you always remember the 1200 bit, then the other bit will just automatically fill itself in.
Mm.
Yes. So this, I've now made this a square image.
Yeah.
We know it's got to be 1600 by 1200, both the maximum. So you can't have it any more than 1600 wide, and you mustn't have it any more than 1200 high.
Yeah,
So,
I get it now.
so we'll assume that it's still 300 dots per inch, and we'll go down to export it, ... file, export. If we put in here 1600 and then push return, because it's locked, it's made it 600 square, 1600 square.
Yeah.
Well, that makes the height wrong.
Okay.
So what you need to do is make it just put the 1200 in for the height, click return, and there we are, it's 1200 square.
Okay.
And then export it.
Paul,
Yeah.
in Photoshop, you've got the chance, you've got a thing that is called fit image. Have we got that in Affinity? I think it used to be under File, Automate, Fit Image. Because if it's got something like that, all you need to do is you put 1600 by 1200 and it just automatically works the size out for you.
That's right. That's right.
And I didn't know whether Affinity has got that.
I haven't seen that. Let me just finish off because it's 1 minute past 12. Right, that's the end of the lesson. Don't anybody leave. We'll talk after, but I will just stop the Zoom. If I can get myself to Zoom, and I will stop sharing. And right, thank you all very much. I'm just going to stop the recording.